except where them hands, where them holes, where them throws, you know what I'm saying?
One of my friends sent me this video on Facebook, and I think it's a very interesting topic. And it's not something that I can broach or say as somebody that's not indigenous to this particular culture, because I'm pretty sure I would be called all kinds of names and is and everything else like that. And I definitely couldn't say it the way this guy's about to say it, because this is kind of like a harsh interpretation of what's going on or what went on from anyone who has ever read any of the histories of karate. Now, I'm not teaching karate. One of the things I teach is Taekwondo. I have studied karate, but Taekwondo does have a lot of origins in karate, and you could levy these type of criticisms at Taekwondo as well for very similar reasons. So let's hear what he's talking about, and I hope all the expletives have been blurped. So he's basically taking a dig at karate. And like I said, you can take a dig at Taekwondo for this too, by trying to say it's basically just propaganda, it's just nationalistic. So it to me it implies, then why would you study it?
Made kung fu, someone made karate.
And it became a construct in itself.
As an official member of the Japanese party, I have to tell you guys the truth about karate. It's propaganda. That's not an ancient martial art in Japan at all. Boxing came to Japan before karate did.
Is that for real?
Jack Dempsey was popular, bro. Like, everybody was boxing. Judo, jiu-jitsu, everyone did, because that was just something you did at school, everyone learned. Karate stemmed from like...
Now, judo jiu-jitsu was something everyone did. Now, that's probably one reason why a lot of people didn't feel like they had to teach grappling to their students, in my opinion, because they were getting it at school. So if you're on karate time, why do I need to show you the throws? You already know them, or I'm going to assume that you know how to do the throws. So that's how sometimes, if you wonder how, it seems like these people, they know how to handle grapplers and these other people don't. And the people that don't know how to handle grapplers, they must be bad. No, it's because and this is my opinion. This is my guess here. I think they probably just assumed that, oh, yeah, you already know how to do that because you're getting it in school, so I'm going to teach you something else. Let's continue.
Okinawa, right?
Yeah, but Okinawans aren't Japanese. They're like their own people. At the time, Japan was kind of being like Nazis, right? They're like, we can't have this white being popular in Japan. They don't want anything American. We need to have our own striking sport that isn't white. And then they found Okinawans doing that. They go, it's called Chinese hands. Chinese hands? Well, we can't call it that. That's not going to be very Japanese. The father of judo made it into a system so you could turn it into a sport.
The father of judo had the belt rankings for judo. And then everybody else copied it. And now we got belts. So that came from Kano Jigoro.
And teach it to the masses. And that's how Shotokan came to life.
Wow. Okay.
It's good that he showed the Shotokan judo connection, because if you look at, I think it's called the 9 throws of Shotokan or something like that. They're pretty much the Gokyo no Waza, in my opinion. They're like the first set of judo throws. I had to brush up on my terminology.
It's basically kung fu that went to Okinawa. A lot of Okinawans could also speak Chinese.
Yes. Now, see, I was told that a lot of karate is basically like really hard style Yang Kung Fu. But I was told this, so, yeah.
His mouth, too.
Chinese mouth. Chinese mouth.
That's a little crazy.
Now, we can't call it that, can we? Closer to Taiwan than it is to Japan. They were their own kingdom. They're not even ethnically Japanese, right? So that's what people don't know about. They're Ryukyuans. They're their own kingdom. How they survived is when Chinese people came, they'll be like, yo, here's tribute. Yeah, man, we're on the same team. We pay to you guys. When Japan came, they're like, yeah, man, we pay to you. We're Japanese, dude. Oh. That's how they survived.
Probably just mixed hell over the years.
Yeah, and then they're like, well, we can't call it Chinese hands because it's a Japanese sport. So they go empty-handed.
Wow.
Yeah, dude.
What year was this? Like when this all went down?
Man, I don't
93.
That's the same thing with Tong Sudo, China hand way. But see, I don't know the kanji very well, so at all, really. So they went from China hand way or Chinese hand to empty hand. Or If you want to go with the Afrocentric interpretation, you could see Kara as spirit. And it was something I read, I can't remember the book. Ka, Ra, and Te mean Ka is spirit. No, Ka, I'm sorry, is body. Ra is the energy or spirit, like the sun. Like the sun, the Egyptian sun deity Ra, and Te is hand. So that's still like energy, the body, energy, hand.
That's why I was bored, bro. I don't know. It could be 1910. Someone made Kung Fu.
Hopefully, I've made that clip. So some of these same arguments could be made towards Taekwondo. And I think people will probably use this type of logic to disparage a lot of what we call traditional martial arts as a whole. Now, I think generative AI did a really good job of explaining kind of where I'm going with this, but not completely. Um, so the guy was saying that karate is just propaganda. You could levy that argument also against Taekwondo technically, but not completely. But you can't say that there isn't some sort of nationalism in it. So I just went to Google and typed in is Taekwondo Korean propaganda. So this is the basic thing that it says right here. The idea that it's solely Korean propaganda is an oversimplification because it evolved from various Korean martial arts traditions and it has influences. Karate is a big influence on Taekwondo, but now it's recognized as its own martial sport. I mean, they're both punch kick martial arts. So take a look at, just go to Google and type in "is Taekwondo Korean propaganda?" You should get the same thing here because it's got a nationalistic identity because of the reaction of it being occupied by Japan. Korea was occupied by Japan during the Korean War, and they wanted a sport and a martial art they could call their own and use you know, to get everybody's morale back. If you've ever heard of Tang Sudo and Taekwondo are very closely related. Tang Sudo keeps the karate forms, something that a lot of people know that are already in there. Now, I'm glad he did this. Taekyon and Taekwondo. Taekwondo and Taekyon. Taekyon kicks are in Taekwondo, but Taekwondo is not Taekyon. And this is something that you really don't, that I had to figure this out on my own right here, just by being around the martial arts for so long. So even in Korea, Taekwondo is pretty much seen as something for kids. And adults train in military and study martial arts to get a degree or to hope that they're going to get their own business. Now, the type of Taekwondo that people will be considered military Taekwondo is the ITF Taekwondo forms. That, if you see Taekwondo paired with Hapkido, that, in my opinion, tends to be what more people would think of the type of Taekwondo that's either for the military or for adults. So, whether or not it's propaganda-ish, propaganda-y, if those are words, or if it's nationalistic, I still think you should study it, and I'm going to give my reasons why. So, if karate is just a bunch of propaganda, if Taekwondo is just a bunch of propaganda, heck, let's say all the traditional martial arts are just a bunch of propaganda, which is where I think a lot of people would try to go with this, then why study it? I mean, there are people that know how to fight, and they don't study traditional martial arts or classical martial arts. They don't do those fancy schmancy dance moves and try to repeat those. And they can still fight and they still win. They don't have it in boxing. Why study it? I'll tell you why. Because in my opinion, if you are training for what I call regular schmegular violence, which is a broad term, it's everything outside of going to actual war. Which is funny because a lot of people that go to actual war study traditional martial arts, or they have studied traditional martial arts at one point. If you need to handle regular schmegular violence, traditional arts are the way to go. I don't care what the internet says. Where the internet is right about your training is you need to do the traditional arts and the sport. You don't have to do them both concurrently. You should have spent some time in sport, in my opinion, and some time in tradition, in my opinion. The only time I would say you should have to forsake sport is if your body just isn't up to it and you just don't have time. Because you can still get benefits from just tradition. Study if it's whatever your traditional art is, if we break and just oversimplify all the martial arts into the punch kick striking styles and the wrestling grappling styles. That's one thing I do like from MMA is they gave us a good template to look at if we want to just take and analyze everything into just two major martial arts food groups. Okay. If your major is grappling, you should spend some time also in striking. If your major is striking, you should spend some time also in grappling. Depending upon how far you want to go, if you plan to teach one, you should also get a black belt, in my opinion, in the other, or as much as you can as time and budget would permit. Because the good thing is, it is true. We can't practice these traditional moves all out. We'll kill someone. A lot of people on the internet will say, oh, that makes them less effective. No, that makes them very effective. But if you don't have a lot of violence experience, then you probably need to go as close as you can to violence as possible without it being ridiculous. Now, that doesn't mean hard sparring every day in class, because hard sparring all the time is going to give you unnecessary injuries. You don't want that. But the whole ritual and process of preparing for a tournament and doing one, I think you just need to do like a tournament or a few tournaments. That's it. You don't need to go all around the competitive circuit. Just gear up, go through the stress of preparing for a tournament. It's going to give you all the nerves and the uncertainty and everything that you would need and the worry and all that pressure. Being able to do moves under that kind of pressure, even if the moves is just you doing your form solo, not even sparring. The whole pressure and the process of going through preparing for a tournament, at least once in your martial arts career, at least once, I think it would be beneficial. Because the longer you hang around the martial arts, that is when you will truly see just how beneficial I call it the classical approach is. What most people call the traditional martial arts approach is. Because I found once I got a hold of those forms, I started seeing that stuff everywhere. I got a hold of the forms, got up in that, and was still like do judo. I started seeing after a while, I could see people always would say, oh, it's all part of the whole mountain. It's all the same thing. You start to see it after a while. Then you look at Aikido and you can see, oh, so you can use that move here like this. And then if you study something like a screamer, after a while, it was like, this is actually just a variation of this. If I'm doing this, if I do this, I can take a stick and do that. Take a stick and come. If I want to do a little, I can take a stick or a blade and come up under here. Like, I can come up under here with it. You really start seeing how they're all the same. But just the whole thing, though, of when somebody is making you stick and turn this way, turn that way, and really working you on your fundamentals like they tend to do with a good traditional martial arts background, when you learn the stuff that's like the spice and the sugar on top, when you try to learn the pressure points and the Kyusho Jitsus, if your basics are there, your stuff is bang amplified. It's amplified. But see, I think a lot of people like to study they want to study the stuff that they think is more real first, or really instead of buckling down, quieting the ego, and learning how to do these moves that I don't see a direct correlation towards. I don't see how I would do this in a fight. I would never do this in a fight. And while you may not literally do this in a fight, you do this. And then you might reach out and grab for somebody to hold them to punch them. That's an abstraction. That is abstracting. Oh man. Uh, right? But except if you can do this, if somebody comes at you, this might be enough to stop it. That might be enough to stop it. That might be enough to stop it. Especially when you start learning things like Q-show and Kupso and where to hit. Heck, if you do it right on the right spot, man, ow, 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 my arm went dead. My arm. And the internet doesn't believe it. And that's what makes it great. Some people may worry that with all the things that are available now, that the secrets could get out into the wrong hands. No. People like to believe what they can feel or what they see. I'm not really talking about y'all. I am so guilty of this, it's not even funny. I was standing right there when people were being knocked out when I went to my first pressure point seminar, and I didn't believe it until it was directly done to me. And I've said this in front of the guy who was doing it. He just laughed because it is funny. It's like, yeah, I know. That's why I hit you. So that's why you need to study, in my opinion, if you don't have a lot of violence experience. Because if you are used to actually fighting people a lot, if you've been in like quote unquote real fights, you're gonna see how to do this. It's gonna occur to you if you've had to deflect people off a lot. But if you haven't, which is what the lives that most of us are thankfully fortunate enough to live. If you want to know, oh my gosh, how do I handle a real thing? You do your traditional things, and then you figure out where to cross train in something with sport, and then read a bunch of books too. The stuff about how to handle the streets is not written down. It's actually written down now. You just don't know which authors to go to. There's books, all the stuff that I used to think, oh, this is how to hoodlum things, and nobody's written that down. That stuff's been written down. It's been written down. There are books about it. You just have to know who the authors are. Should I tell you? You could Google this and find them out. I'll give you one, Mark McYoung. Now, I've never met him. I think the other guy is Lauren Christensen that writes those books, and Peyton Quinn. Now, I've never met any of these gentlemen, so I don't get a kickback for saying their names. And they also have traditional martial arts background. It never occurred to me that how they know how to break traditional martial arts so well? Because they studied them. Duh. That's duh on me. So thanks for watching this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this with people like to talk about the martial arts and peace. And even if you could say it's propaganda, it's got so many benefits, it's not even funny. Just doing the forms can work your balance, man. That's a good solo exercise to work your balance. And if you do it long enough, if you don't have a training partner, because I saw in the judo tournament like decades ago, but when I was going for the last test I was in, I went back to doing my forms, and that got me over the hump. So, peace. And thank you for your time. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you. So, if karate is just a bunch of propaganda, all right, let me try again.